What's up, Spellslingers? Chris, Legendary Mana. And if you remember, not too long ago, I did a Black White Zombies deck tech. And I have since then have revised it to sort of improve on what was basically going on with that deck. No deck is perfect. You'll never get a deck to where it's going to perfectly line up with the meta. But after the Pro Tour, I spent some time trying to think, and I've also took some advice here and there on the deck from a bunch of different people that I trust. And so this is where it's at today. So I wanted to kind of go over it and then do some gameplay. So we're going to start out with the lands. And there's not many changes here. But what I did is I took out Shambling Vent because I felt like the lands coming in tapped was slowing me down, especially when you're dealing with, mono red zombies or black green constrictor. You really need to get on top of them fast, and you can't necessarily take a turn off because your land came in tapped. Now, Concealed Courtyard comes in tapped, but that's post turn 3. Most of your spells are 3 mana spells. So once you get to turn 4 and you say if you have a Concealed Courtyard, it's okay. It doesn't bother me too much to have Concealed Courtyard come in tapped. So Shambling Vent is out. And what I did is I actually added some deserts. And these are proven to be really crucial in beating decks or just that last-ditch effort to get one more turn, which sometimes that one extra turn buys you the time you've needed to sort of win or come to close winning, just depending on the situation. So Ifnir Deadlands. Yeah, listen to me. Ifnir Deadlands. So Ifnir Deadlands, as it reads here, you tap to pay 1 life to add black mana, and then you also can tap it to use it for colorless mana. And then you can tap 2 of any color and 2 black to tap this land to sacrifice a desert, so not this desert, but any desert that you have, and put 2 -1/-1 counters on a target creature an opponent controls. It only gets activated as a sorcery, but I do find that there are several occasions where I've had to use this. I think the other ones I've used more, but this one definitely is useful in certain instances when, let's just say, it's a difference of you getting rid of 1 creature to swing in for lethal as opposed to needing another turn to get there. So that's definitely helped in certain situations. It doesn't happen in every single situation, but it does help, and it has come up. So I'm using 3 Ifnir Deadlands. And there's a reason why I have a total of 7 deserts. The next one is Shefet? I don't know. I think it's Shefet Dunes. I'm so bad with names. You guys know that. So again, very similar to Ifnir Deadlands, just the special ability, and you can tap it for white. The special ability is you tap 2 white, 2 of any color to sacrifice a desert. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Activate this ability, again, only as a sorcery. Again, it's one of those late gamers that, hey, you know what? I'm only 1 point away with the creatures that I have on the board. Sack this baby out and get +1/+1 counters the rest, or not counters, sorry, +1/+1 until the end of turn with your creatures, and it gets you over that hump. So, and again, I've used this a couple of times. So, not saying that these will be used in every single situation, but they're very versatile on what you want to do with it. Next thing, to deal with other strategies like Eternalized strategies or Graveyard strategies, or being able to just, I think of Control as another one, right? Where you want to get rid of their graveyard because, well, a couple of reasons. With Torrential Gearhulk still out there, they can bring something back from their graveyard, an instant sorcery, destroy one of your creatures, counter a spell, or draw more cards. Well, if you get rid of those cards, Torrential Gearhulk, it comes out, but they can't bring anything in. So, and with this Scavenger Grounds, I found that this is actually a really great card. Now, it does exile your own graveyard, but I think in the situation where you need to play this, especially against control, I don't really care because I'm going to get more creatures out anyways. It's not going to be a creature for creature kind of tit for tat kind of battle. It's going to be I'm putting creatures out and they're either going to destroy them, counter them, or not be able to do anything. So I think this is an overall win. There is 2 copies of it in here, and the reasons for that is to sort of get it to come up quicker in those situations that you need it. Moving on, the rest of the deck is virtually the same. 4 Cryptbreakers, 3 Dread Wanderers. So I went down on 1 Dread Wanderer because Dread Wanderer comes in tapped. Now, even though it returns to the battlefield and there's a lot of sweepers, you know, I found that it doesn't really matter to me. Put creatures in my yard because then Diregraf Colossus, which I'm running 4 of those, you know, he's going to get pumped up. He could be a 6/6, 8/8, 7/7. Whatever. And at that point, a Braid or Magma Spray or Sweltering Suns and stuff like that, the only thing that would get it would be Harness Lightning. But beyond that, I mean, there's very limited removal for a very large and big Diregraf Colossus. So I went ahead and decided it's time to drop 1 Dread Wanderer. 3 Fatal Push, 4 Wayward Servant, and then I'm moving 1 Grasp of Darkness into the main board. And that's the deal with, you know, any creatures. I think it needed a 4th piece of removal, and not sure if you hear that, but it's raining like crazy out here today. So I do apologize if you hear the thunder in the background. Nothing I can do about that, except for turn off the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear me. So, but anyways, so 1 Grasp of Darkness in the main board. 3 Mummy Paramounts. Now, whenever another zombie enters the battlefield, under your control, Mummy Paramount gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. So every time you bring out a zombie, whether it's through Dark Salvation, Liliana's Mastery, every time a zombie hits the battlegrounds, the battlefield, it gets +1/+1. It can get pretty ugly pretty quick and can get out of the range of, again, an Abrade or a Magma Spray or any of those unless they deal with it right away. So this is between this one and Diregraf Colossus, they're lightning rods, but you know, you have a total of 3 of these and 3 Diregraf Colossus. If they have to take care of them, fine. I got Wayward Servant, which will also do very well because Wayward Servant, whenever another zombie enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, you know, it's minimal life gain, but it helps out. Every little bit helps you out, especially against those aggro matchups. Desert's Hold is in there for primarily Hazard's Favor, but there's a lot of other cards that have activated abilities, and this sort of it's kind of like a pacifism for that. So it can not only not block or attack, but the abilities cannot be activated for that creature. Additionally, having one of the 7 deserts out, you gain 3 life when it enters the battlefield. I also went down to 1 Unconventional Tactics. I had 2 in there, but I found that 2 really just didn't matter because every time you play a zombie, you can bring it back to your hand. Play a zombie, bring it back to your hand. So I really ultimately decided I favored another creature over having a second Unconventional Tactics. We still have 4 Diregraf Colossus, 4 Lord of the Curse. I cut down one of the Liliana Masteries and favored it for Avacyn Archangel. And this is for those sweepers, you know, for Our Devastation, Bantu's Reckoning, or any other sweeper, Sweltering Suns. Basically, when Avacyn Archangel comes into play, all your creatures become indestructible. So kind of negates that. Only 1. You don't need any more than 1. The only challenge with that one is if you have a good board state, you could end up nuking all of your zombies. But hopefully by then, once you need to get or use Avacyn Archangel, you'll be able to either swing in for lethal that turn or maybe next turn. So I specifically haven't had a huge issue with it. And it's kind of risky, but it definitely has become useful. And then we're sticking with 4 Dark Salvations. You know, doubles as removal as well as putting creatures out on the board. So win-win there. Finally, the sideboard has been moved around quite a bit and changed. I've made a lot of changes and decided to... I went with 3 Authority of the Consuls. And this is actually especially important against token strategies. So for God Pharaoh, or no, not God Pharaoh, the Monument deck. I mean, every time a creature comes out, you gain a life, and it comes into play tapped. So you still have 1 extra turn if, say, they play a bunch of tokens on 1 turn and you have, 2 or 3 creatures out. It allows you to, it's basically a 1-turn pacifism. They can't attack or block with them. So it just allows you to kind of get that extra edge during heavy aggro or token matchups. I use 3 of those. And when I sub these out, when I bring these in, typically what I do is I'll take out Desert's Hold and Unconventional Tactics, depending on the matchup. Now, if I'm playing against mono red, likely what I'll do is I'll take out Unconventional Tactics and maybe the Dread Wanderers to bring them in, because I'm gonna want this over the Dread Wanderers, right? So I'll play more of a control matchup with aggro mixed in. So it's kind of interesting. I didn't think it would work so well, but because I'm running 23 lands and I'm churning through lands pretty well, and most of everything costs only 3, it actually works out really well, and I feel like it curves out really well. Putting 1 Grasp of Darkness in the sideboard, 2 Selfless Spirits for again those matchups that have sweepers. Let's just say blue-red control. Just this allows you to give your zombies a breath of extra turn or life. So combine those 2 with Avacyn Archangel works really well. I'll bring in Declaration Stone for most token matchups. As well as Deck and Stone, I feel, depending on the deck that you're playing, Deck and Stone will work on mono red as well. But it depends on the version they're playing as well, because there's several different versions. I think the one that has 4 of Hazoret and all the other creatures, I think it works because you can then take out several creatures at once. But if it's the other version, where it has a lot of removal and several different creatures, then I wouldn't play that. So you just have to identify that as soon as you can. 2 decommissions to destroy artifact or an enchantment. So for Drakehaven or any of those other enchantments they have to deal with, I considered putting in the one mana costing one. I forget the name of it, but ultimately, because it would be faster, but ultimately it's narrow because it only destroys artifacts, and artifacts 3 or less. So, for instance, if somebody's got for instance, if somebody's got the artifact out that brings creatures back from the graveyard, it wouldn't take care of that. So you need to have something that's going to. So I decided to opt into using Decommission. Dispossess for heavy artifact Mardu vehicles. And And then Dispossess for heavy artifact like Martyr vehicles. It works out to be that, works really well. Also God Pharaoh in some ways. And then blue red control for Torrential Gearhulk. Anguished Unmaking for anything else that you want to get rid of, say Planeswalker. And then a sweeper in Dust of Dawn for creatures with the power 3 or greater. So for most of your zombies, as long as you don't have things that are pumped up around you, this is a good thing to have in your sideboard. Sort of just, it's a sweeper for big creatures, maybe Constrictor, black-green Constrictor, or anything like that, or energy, so on and so forth.